Good afternoon. We're back with another Lord of the Rings LCG Progression Series card review. This time the first box of the Hobbit saga Over Hill and Under Hill. I liked this box quite a bit. So let's get started. The first card, the first hero, Thorin Oakenshield. 12 threat, 3/3/1, 5 health. 4/4/1 with Dane. He's good with Dane. The problem is Dane is 11 threat. The problem for solo play is that Dane is 11 threat. So if you run these two, you're already at 23. Even with an 8 threat hero as your third, you're at 31. So if you run Dane for defense, Thorin for questing, because the dwarves, he'd be the best dwarves quester. And then you need an attack hero after that. And the only good attack dwarf is Gimli. And if you ran Gimli, you'd be at 33 threat to start. That's too high for solo. I like to be under 30 to start, or I don't consider it very good. I have done it repeatedly in this series where I started over 31, but usually that's I'm playing a deck that I don't consider to be the best deck available, but I want to play it because it's got new cards, because it's interesting to me. But when I review cards, I'm reviewing as if I'm preparing for the hardest quests to be available in solo play. And this card, Thorin Oakenshield, is too high a threat to be a good hero in a deck that is preparing to beat the hardest quests in the game. Your Escape from Dol Guldur, Shadow and Flame, Battle for Lake Down sort of thing. That's the quest the very difficult quest that you'll be facing at this point. Even against the Hobbit saga quests, I'm not sure he's good with Dane. In combination with Dane, because of the high threat, you'd be so close to the threshold for aggroing 2 trolls right away that you really have to play a spirit dwarf as your third. And the only good one is Nori. I forget what the other one's name is, but I don't think he's that good. Balin, maybe? Is he 7 threat? I forget. You'd still be at 30 if he was 7, but I don't think he is. Let me check on that. Yeah, Dwalin is 9 threat and Nori's 9 threat. So because Thorin and Dane together would start at high threat, you'd really have to play a spirit hero in order to gain access to the threat reduction. And that has to be a 9 cost one, and so you'd be starting at 32, and that's too high. You're already at the threshold for aggroing 2 trolls in the first quest of the Hobbit box. So I think Thorin and Dane were specifically designed so you couldn't play them together functionally in one deck. I think Thorin is designed for if one player's got Dane and the other player's feeling like their deck is a little underwhelming because all the power is coming from their partner, they can play Thorin as their primary hero, and it's a little more satisfying to play. I think that's how it's intended. I don't think Thorin is good in solo play because of the high threat. His stats are very good with Dane. His stats are almost good but not good without Dane. So if you're going to choose him or Dane, you would choose Dane, and you can't play them both together because the threat's too high in solo play. So that's my opinion on him. I'd love to be able to make him work, find a deck that works in solo play. There are plenty of fun decks that could do it, but when prepping for the hardest quests in the game, there's no way you could play Thorin and Dane, and there's no way you could play Thorin without Dane, and look at the deck and say, yep, that deck is prepared to take on the hardest difficulty quest. So, Nori, 9 threat, 2/1/2. After you play a dwarf character from your hand, reduce your threat by 1. I think if you need a spirit dwarf hero, I think he's better than Dwalin, just straight up better. More questing power, but little less defense or attack. Defense is the same, and his ability will proc more often. Dwalin's reduces threat when you kill an orc. Nori, when you just play a dwarf character, it's passive. He's better. That's why he exists, to be a better spirit dwarf hero, and he is. So if you play a deck in which you run a Spirit Dwarf hero, which is Dwellin, and you buy this box, you'll get an upgrade. Doesn't unlock new strategies, but he's an upgrade. Ori, 8 threat, 2/2/1, 3 health. If you control at least 5 dwarf characters, draw 1 additional card at the beginning of the resource phase. He's good if you want a lore dwarf. Yep, not much else to say about him. He's good. 3/3, 1. What's the other lore dwarf option? Biffer, I think. No, Biffer's good too because Biffer's low threat. Who would I play, Biffer or Ori? Biffer helps you pay for the high cost lore cards too. Boy, that's a tough call. That's a tough call. I don't really like to play lore in dwarf decks because I think Gimli's just so good. So I play Dane, Gimli, and then you really need Spirit Dwarf for threat reduction. I played Lore at the beginning, a Lore Dwarf hero Biffer, from Cause of Doom up as far as I could make it, which I think was Watcher in the Water, and then it just wasn't good enough anymore. This isn't a good card questing, it's not a good card attacking, it's not a good card defending, nor is Nori. It's not a good with Dane, and it's not good without him. You need 4 questing or attacking to be good. And to be a good defender, I rank my defenders based on how many hits they can take from a troll, which does 6 attack plus a shadow card, and neither of these heroes can take 1 hit. They're not good defenders. And they're not good enough questing or attacking. So you play Nori because you want access to spirit cards. And you want access to spirit cards in a dwarf deck because they start with high threat values. So that's why you play those cards, and you're playing dwarves to scale up into the late game, not because their heroes are good. Why do you play lore if you're running dwarves? Well, you could need card draw. It's less important than threat reduction. Less essential. Dwarves have a couple of low cost cards in the lore sphere that are decent. The Record Keeper and the Erebor Weaponsmith, I think it is, and that's why you play lore, but threat reduction is a more important role, so most of the dwarf decks I've tried, I did not think lore was very strong with dwarves. And this hero isn't strong enough on its own to warrant being one of your heroes. So you're playing it for the effect if you're playing it. And I think Biffer and this are functionally equivalent. You could make a legitimate case for either of them if you want access to lore with your dwarves. Bjorn, 12 threat, 0/5/1 with 10 health, cannot have attachments, immune to player card effects, does not exhaust to defend. That's a good card. That's a good hero. So what role does he fill? Gimli is going to be the better Giant Slayer. You can buff Gimli up quite a bit with Citadel Plate. However, Bjorn is going to replace Boromir as the best hero against multiple small enemies, I think. Boromir can do 2 attacks per phase, which is strong. Bjorn can do an unlimited amount of defenses as long as you have the health to pay for it. Especially if you can give him a little help. It's hard to give him help because he can't have attachments, but you can use Arwen. It's strong. It's a strong hero. If you're looking to a hero that to defeat a lot of small enemies, Bjorn, I think, is better than Boromir. And I'm looking forward to trying him. He's a good hero. Feely and Keely, 3 cost, 1/1/1, 2 health. After you play Feely or after you play Keely, during planning from your hand, search your deck for the opposite and put him into play under your control, then shuffle your deck. Great card. Great pair of cards. 3 cost for 4/4/1/1 if you're playing Dane. It's not good without Dane, but with Dane, it's very, very good. I would put this in every single dwarf deck where I was playing Dane. No exception. Very strong card. Just for the stats. It's unique, but uniqueness isn't really a downside with characters. Because you can just, if you got spares of this in your hand, like if you have Feely in your hand again, even though he's on the table, then suddenly he becomes expendable and he's only got 2 health, so you just have him tank something. Or have each of them tank something, they both die, then you play one of them and search for the other again. Very good card, very good. Played in every dwarf deck. Boffer. New version of Boffer. 3 cost, 2/2/0, 3 health. Exhaust Boffer to search the top 5 cards of your deck for 1 weapon. Add that card to your hand and shuffle the other cards back in your deck. He's very good. He's 3/3/0. Anytime you can get 3 questing or 3 attack for 3 cost, that's a good card. And he's got an action which could help as well. He's good. Yep, I like him. I like him better than his spirit version. Very strong card. I'd put it in every dwarf deck in which I'm running tactics. Good card. Couple of really good additions to dwarf decks in Keeley, Feely, and Boffer. Straight up upgrades over currently existing alternatives. Dory, 3 cost, 1/2/1, 3 health. After a hero is assigned any amount of damage, exhaust Dory to place that damage on Dory instead. Okay. Well, I don't think you're using this to take damage from attacks, because why wouldn't you just have the attack go on Dory instead? I suppose the hero's shields could be a benefit, like if you're having Dane defend and Dane's shields could drop the damage from 3 to 2 or 1 or something, and you put that on Dory. But I think the real benefit would probably be unexpected treachery damage that you could then exhaust Dory to prevent a death, but he's overcosted for his stats, so you'd be playing him for the effect. And the effect is niche. And he's a unique card, and that's not an issue with characters that have good value for their stats, like Feely and Keeley. This one's going to be sitting there to use the ability. It's not good in enough situations. It's niche. It could be good. It could even save your life, but that's not going to happen often. And it's lore, and I don't think lore is very strong with dwarves. This does not change that. So it's on the weaker side because it's overcosted. At 2 cost, it's great. I mean, it's 3 attack for 3 if you... I mean, yeah, I just said... Let me think about that again. So you get 3 attack with Dane, and he sticks around. Well, yeah, for 3 attack, I think if you're playing lore, you probably would stick him in for that 3 attack. Yeah. And then he's got a side effect. Yeah. I changed my mind. I forgot about that buff from Dane. It's good. I'd include it in lore. It's not a reason on its own to play lore, but I'd include it in if you're running a lore dwarf hero. Let's give it a try. New version of Gandalf. 5 cost, 4 questing, 4 attack, 4 shields, 4 health. Does not exhaust to commit to a quest. That's fantastic. Built-in action advantage. At the end of the refresh phrase, discard Gandalf from play. You may raise your threat by 2 to cancel this effect. This is very, very good card in solo play. Very good card in solo play. Now, do you run 3 of it instead of the core Gandalf? I tried it, and I've tried 2 core Gandalf and 1 of this, and I think 2 core Gandalf and 1 of this is better. Because I don't think this is very viable to run, like, play turn 2, save your resources, play turn 2, and then stay on the board for the rest of the game. I think this is a very effective finisher for making final pushes against bosses, final pushes against quests, because it doesn't exhaust. He doesn't exhaust to commit to a quest. But I don't think it's viable to play him for the entire game without really strong threat reduction. But he's gonna be really good. So I'd play one of him in 2 core, probably. I tried 3 of this one, and it's okay. But I think one of him in 2 core Gandalfs is the way to go. Good card. Good card. We got Thorn in multiplayer. Bjorn is good. Fili and Keely are good. Boffer's good. Gandalf is good. By the way, I think Fili and Keely might be a little bit less good in multiplayer than they are in single player because they're unique. So only one player can have them on the board at the time. But in single player, they're phenomenal. Boffer's good. Dory's good. Gandalf is good. Bjorn is good. Thorin, not so much in single player, but a lot of good cards in this set. Cram, 0 cost, attached to a hero, discard cram to ready attached hero. I basically consider this a cycle card or throwaway card, or functionally equivalent to discard this card to draw a card. It's okay. I think there's stronger cards for action advantage. For Hobbits, I'd play 3 of Unexpected Courage, or for Dwarves, I'd play 3 of Unexpected Courage. Would I run Unexpected Courage and Cram? I don't think so. I think it's equivalent to like 0 cost, increase your questing power by 2 or 3 maybe. 0 cost 3 threat is decent. Elrond's Council gives you 0 cost, reduce 3 threat, and 1 questing power, so like 4 threat. So this isn't quite as good as Elrond's Council. I would run Elrond's Council before I'd run this, and I'd run Unexpected Courage before I'd run this, and I don't think you would run all 3, so it's okay, but it's overshadowed. Spare Hood and Cloak, 0 cost, attached to a character, exhaust Spare Hood and Cloak, and exhaust attached character to ready another character. Then attach Spare Hood and Cloak to that character. Interesting. Why? So it's a 1 use for a lackluster character. You could use it on like a niche ally that you play for a purpose and you don't need it for that purpose anymore. But I don't think that's going to happen enough. Usually when you play a character in your deck, an ally, it's for a purpose, and you have a purpose in mind for that ally. There will be times when you play an ally and its purpose, it's sitting on the board and it hasn't done its purpose yet, or it has already and you don't need it anymore, but that's too niche. I don't like niche cards because they're swingy. So I wouldn't play this. I don't think it's good. Too niche. Thror's Map. Attached to a hero. Discard Thror's Map to choose a location in the staging area. Make that location the active location. So it's the card text from that Rohan card. Westfold something or other. But it costs 1 and it's its own card. I think that's too expensive for its effect. Unless there's going to be like really, really nasty location effects later. In that case, you could run this to avoid the really bad travel effects. Even so, there might be better ways to do it. The Rohan character, the Rohan ally comes to mind, because you get stats for that as well. I think this is overshadowed. Both Spare Hood and Cloak and Thror's Map are overshadowed by other cards. Well, no, I mean both Cram and Thror's Map are overshadowed by other cards. Spare Hood and Cloak just isn't good. So, yeah. Okay, but overshadowed. A very good tail. Exhaust 2 allies you control to shuffle your deck and discard the top 5 cards. Put up to 2 allies discarded into play under your control. The total cost of allies cannot exceed the total cost of the allies exhausted to pay for this effect. That is a good card. I like it a lot, especially with Keely and Feely. I've talked before about how the cost of exhausting a hero is very high. The cost of exhausting an ally is not high at all. Well, not high at all is not quite accurate. It's not as high as exhausting a hero. And it got cheaper with Keely and Feely. Because you play Keely or Feely. Let's say you had this and a very good tail in your hand. You play Keely, you get Feely out of your deck. Then you exhaust both of them. And you grab 2 more allies from your deck, the top of your deck. It's not good if you're not playing a lot of allies. But if you're playing an ally-heavy deck, this card is great. I'm going to run it in my Dwarves deck. And I think it's good in the Dwarves deck with Keely and Feely. So, good card. Foe Hammer, 0 cost response after a hero you control attacks and destroys an enemy exhausted weapon card attached to that hero to draw 3 cards. So you need a weapon out, and then you need a hero you control to attack and destroy an enemy. That situation isn't going to happen that much. If it does, the effect is good. But it's going to sit in your hand a lot, unfortunately, until the situation comes up, which makes it a swingy card. Great when it goes off, but not going to go off that much. Niche card. Goblin Cleaver. These cards are all somewhat redundant at this point because I think this box is so strong that it warrants purchase already. So any of the cards we're reviewing, like after we got past, say, basically Bjorn or even Feely or Keely, it's like, okay, now these are just bonus cards because I already want that really strong one. It's a straight upgrade. Basically, once we got past Bjorn, it's all bonus cards, and there's some really strong bonus cards. That's for sure. But Goblin Cleaver. So from that point on, we're basically reviewing them from the point of, now that I already own these cards, would I stick them in a deck? And that's a lower bar than is this box or this AP essential to get. This one is. Goblin Cleaver, 0 cost, exhaust a weapon card attached to a hero to choose an enemy, deal 2 damage to that enemy, 3 if it's an orc. It's good, but it's, again, niche, same as Foe Hammer, because you need... It's less niche than Foe Hammer, but it's also less valuable. Because, yes, it's easier to use. You don't have to wait until you attack and destroy an enemy. However, you do have to wait until 2 damage is needed. And that doesn't happen all the time. But I think it does happen a little bit more often than a hero with a weapon attacks and destroys an enemy. So it's a little bit less niche, but a little bit less powerful. And I still don't think I would run it because its power doesn't justify its swinginess. In my opinion, that's very subjective. But that's my opinion. Late Adventurer. Exhaust a character you control that is not... I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Goblin Cleaver in a good deck, though. It wouldn't shock me. I don't think I'd include it myself, but it wouldn't shock me. Because direct damage is very powerful. If it saves you a turn to finish off a high health boss or something, yeah. Can be powerful. Late Adventurer. Exhaust a character you control that is not committed to the quest to commit that character to the... What? Why would you play a card for that? If you want to commit a character to a quest, just commit a character to a quest. There's no cost to it. What situation would you be in where you need to commit a character to a quest late? And he's ready. It's not like you can commit a character who's already exhausted. Why does this exist? I like when games present new challenges, but figuring out why a card exists is not the challenge I usually have in mind. I don't understand why this card is in the game. Interesting. Well, I don't think it's good if I can't figure out why it's not in the game at all. Interesting. Guess you could troll your friends like, no, I'm not gonna commit my guy to the quest. Oh yes, ha ha ha, I am. All right. Well, next card. Expecting mischief. 1 cost. Play during the quest phase before staging. Okay. Deal 2 damage to the first enemy revealed from the encounter deck this phase. It's bad in solo because a lot of the time it'll do nothing. You get a location or a treachery and then it's gone because it doesn't sit there and wait. And a 4-player game, it's okay. Goblin Cleaver does 2 damage for nothing. 0 cost. You just have to have a weapon out. This is 2 damage for 1 cost. And you don't get to choose where the damage goes. It's significantly worse than Goblin Cleaver. It's off sphere, that's probably why. I don't like cards that are bad because they're off sphere, or overcosted, let's say, because they're off sphere. So I wouldn't play it. If I wanted access to a card that does a similar function but it's just better, like Goblin Cleaver, then I'd run Song of Battle and play it. I wouldn't play something off sphere that's overcosted. That's my personal deck building philosophy, though. Your mileage may vary. So, excellent cards in this set. Thorin good in multiplayer, Bjorn straight up good, Fili Kili good, Boffer good. Dory, I think I changed my mind about it. Didn't initially think he was good looking at it. But taking into account that he'd be with Dane and would therefore have 3 attack for 3 cost, he's good. In lore decks, Gandalf is good. Very good tail is good. A lot of good cards. Very strong box. Very strong. I like it a lot. Looking forward to playing the cards. Thanks for watching.